Hi, my name is Varun and welcome to the Arp and Bench channel. And this is episode number 3 in trying to decode the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. Now, before we try to understand what the Bhagavad Gita is all about, we first need to understand why the Bhagavad Gita actually took place. And in order for me to do that, I need to do a small recap about one of India's most popular epics named Mahabharat. Now, many of you may already know this story, but I'm just doing a quick recap until the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But to just share a small snippet about Mahabharat is nothing but a story or a fight for justice versus greed between the two families. Now, the story of Mahabharata starts with two brothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Both of them were groomed to be the king. And Dhritarashtra was blind, and hence Pandu was chosen over him to be the king. And after Pandu became the king, both of them got married respectively. Dhritarashtra had 101 sons who were infamously known as the Kauravas, with Duryodhana being the eldest. And Duryodhana was considered to be the chief of all negative characters in the Mahabharata. On the other hand, Pandu had 5 sons, out of which the eldest was the eldest between both the families and hence the rightful heir to the throne. However, Arjuna is in so many ways the most prominent character in the Mahabharata and most importantly in the Bhagavad Gita. So these two are one of the most important names in the Bhagavad Gita, as there are many other names, but they would be highly confusing for a person who's reading it the first time. And now in this story, the god takes the form of a popular Indian deity known as Krishna. Now, many of you may be wondering that in my previous video I had told that this book is not based on religion or God, but now there is the Lord and Krishna. But I can assure you that this book, Bhagavad Gita, will appeal even to an atheist in the same way it appeals to a person who believes in God. And now both the families were being trained together. The Pandavas and the Kauravas were being trained together. They were trained in warfare and skills how to run a kingdom and all basic things that's needed to have for a king or for any of the other guardians of the kingdom. And during this course, the Pandavas outshine the Kauravas in every way possible, and the Kauravas absolutely hated it. They did not like it at all. And the attitude of both the families started appealing to the public. They had now understood that there was something wrong between these two families. They had some real animosity. And it was then decided that it would be better if the kingdom is split into 2 equal halves, with one half ruled by the Pandavas and the other half ruled by the Kauravas. And the Lord and so many other people were trying to maintain peace between these two families, as they were all aware of how catastrophic it would be if these two families clashed in warfare. And during this time, like any other story, Kauravas managed to put the Pandavas down in so many ways, and obviously they failed. So the Kauravas actually, during this splitting of kingdoms, politic their way into getting the better half of the kingdom. And the Pandavas got the half which had more of barren land to rule. And the Kauravas got the established half of the kingdom. So now this is where the age-old quote of education plays a vital role comes into play. The Pandavas got the barren land, but with the knowledge and expertise that they had, they managed to turn the barren land into a land of paradise. And now the Kauravas started having a trip of jealousy and greed. They didn't know what to do. They didn't expect the Pandavas to reach so high. And that is where the problem arises, when they just did not want their share. They were not satisfied with their share. They wanted everybody else's share. And that is the source of all problems. So now the Kauravas actually sat down and decided what is the best way to bring the Pandavas down. So they devised a strategy, and the strategy to bring the Pandavas down that they thought was gambling. So they managed to trick the Pandavas into playing a game of gambling, and they also tricked them into losing their wealth and all their possessions, and managed to make them even lose their own kingdom. And if they lost their kingdom, the rule was they would go outside the kingdom on exile for 12 long years. So they went on an exile for 12 long years, with an additional clause that Duryodhana added, that they would also be incognito for 1 year, and during that 1 year, if they were caught by Duryodhana or any of the other Kauravas, they would be sentenced to death. And during these 13 years, the Kauravas became mighty in size and wealth and expanded their kingdom, and they were reaching near untouchable status. During these 13 years, the Lord helped the Pandavas a lot and still tried to maintain peace and order between these two families. Again, with the view of what would be the repercussions of such a catastrophic war. And after 13 years, the Pandavas returned to the kingdom where the mighty Kauravas had ruled for 13 years. So Pandavas asked for their rightful share of the kingdom, just theirs. And Duryodhana and the rest of the Kauravas denied it, as now they had the size of an army to speak against these 5 Pandavas. They were confident in fighting them, as opposed to earlier. So Pandavas tried to reason with them, and it failed, and now the Lord himself had gone to Duryodhana and rest of the Kaurava family and pleaded to give the rightful share of the kingdom to the Pandavas. And his plea fell to deaf ears. Neither Duryodhana or any of the other Kauravas were willing to share any part of their kingdom. So now the war was inevitable. The great Indian war, Mahabharat, was about to happen. It was declared the war between the two families is going to take place. And now Duryodhana from the Kaurava clan and Arjuna from the Pandava clan, both of them approached the Lord to seek his help to support their respective armies. Arjuna spoke first, and he asked the Lord to be his chariot driver. And Duryodhana laughed it off and said that I want the Lord's entire army. The Lord smiled and granted both their wishes, and both of them went happily. And now very soon the Mahabharat had started, which is known as the Kurukshetra war. And the Kurukshetra war lasted for 18 long days with no measure to the amount of casualties. So it was during the first day of the war, the very first day of the war, that the Bhagavad Gita actually begins. The chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is in many ways the summary of the Mahabharat up until the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now always remember guys, it will lead the way, and all you have to do is free your mind. And that's a wrap for episode number 3, and until the next episode, goodbye.